Oh, I'm good. Thank you very much for asking. Paddy, I was calling on, and I seen it yesterday on VOCM, and I got it today in the Western Star. Mayor Charles Pender's talking about the operating grants for the small towns should be cut, and how the city is suffering because of it. I find it offensive to the small towns in some of the comments that he has made in the towns now. And I have to clarify, part of the Bay of Islands district is part of Curling, which is part of Corner Brook, and the vast majority, probably 70%, is in the rural north and south shore of the Bay of Islands. But some of the comments that the mayor made, it's just offensive. And I'll give you just an example. When he talks about the amount of money that's been going to these towns, Stephenville, and there's not just Bay of Islands to Stephenville, it's $2.2 to about $2.5 million a year, and the MOG was cut from the city probably about 3 years ago. There's a new fiscal arrangement being worked out with M&L, which City of Corner Brook is being part of. And this M&L arrangement is a new fiscal arrangement for all municipalities across the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Mayor Pender has more than one chance to make his proposal to M&L, who is representing the City of Corner Brook for these small towns. When you look at the City of Corner Brook, what they're saying, that small towns are getting these grants, and I just got to remind the mayor that just in the last little while, just for example, there's a $110 million loan to Kruger, like it or not, but there was to keep the infrastructure and keep the workers in Corner Brook to help out the Corner Brook base. The Corner Brook City Hall, $27 million hall, $27 million. There was a fair chunk, 10 to 12 million, I'm not sure the exact figure, was put in from the provincial government. They're doing a water treatment plant as we speak. It soon be up and running. There was $14.8 million from the province for this. So when he wants to talk about each town and not getting MOGs, the smaller towns, $35,000, $40,000, he has to realize that the City of Corner Brook is getting a fair share from the province at times. And when the MOG was cut, and I need to go back to this, Paddy, because the MOG was cut for the larger municipalities, I spoke up against it. I said, here's what's going to happen. It's going to be cut for the city. It's going to be long term from here to eternity. There's one councillor on the City of Corner Brook, Linda Sheza. She never said one word. Actually, when I spoke up against it, the city council at the time said, you don't know what you're talking about. You're foolish. You don't know what you're talking about. So now what he should do is go back and speak to his councillor, who the one who got re-elected. Why didn't you speak up about it? Because it was an issue at the time. But for him to take this, because the MOG, the government was in a bind 3 years ago, they cut the MOG. For him now to lay the blame at the smaller municipalities around Western Newfoundland, and I know Mayor Pender mentioned once on the North Shore of the Bay of Islands, he should put a toll gate on the bridge. I mean, like, how condescending. And then he mentioned in his article.
Well, he's looking out for number one. He's the mayor of the City of Corner Brook. He's not the mayor of Stephenville. He's not the mayor of small towns. I mean, I know and understand your point. I don't think you're far off there, but I don't know if he's supposed to be standing up for anyone but the City of Corner Brook, is he?
But if you're going to stand up for the City of Corner Brook, Paddy, I have no problem. But do it to the right people. Do it to the government of Newfoundland and Labrador, his buddies, the same one he ran for the nomination for, his friends. Don't go trying to take it and blame it on the smaller municipalities and try to give them a black eye. Corner Brook is a service centre, and in his article he's talking about how the City of Corner Brook had to keep a firefighting crew. I admire the firefighters. I think they're doing a great job, but there's a lot of municipalities that are about 45 minutes to an hour. They have volunteer firefighters. Yep. So don't be condescending on them because they don't need to raise their taxes because they have a volunteer firefighter. They've got 20, 25 members, and they're out raising money. I mean, I use Cox's Cove, for example. I mean, if you had to rely on the City of Corner Brook, and the impression he's given is that we got to keep it because we got to go to them. They go to certain calls, but the majority of calls that these volunteer firefighters, they don't call upon the City of Corner Brook, and if they do, they got to pay for it. So for the city to talk about volunteer firefighters into the light that you don't have professionals, so but we needed to protect you, it's just absolutely not true.
Yeah, the only difference between a professional firefighter and a volunteer firefighter is a paycheck. They are well trained and gutsy, and they do it for all the right reasons. They're great members of their community. I totally understand that point. But didn't we just put a new fire truck in Cox's Cove?
Well, it's not there yet, but it's going there. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right, that's all.
And then, but Paddy, the point is that he's making these comments about these towns because he's trying to take away the problems with the city of Corner Brook. If the city of Corner Brook has a problem with the MOGs, go to the people, his buddies. Go to his buddy Van Granter, who decided to cut it from the city of Corner Brook. Let him go there.
Van Granter didn't cut the MOGs.
You know the strange part about this, Petty?
Wow.
Tom Marshall just resigned. Tom Marshall Tom Marshall just resigned. Okay. When's the last time you heard Mayor Charles Penner speak about the MOGs that were cut 3 years ago? Not a one word. But now all of a sudden, it's a big issue, and he was trying to say, well, cut everybody. But he forgets about the money that's coming to the city.
So are Liberals only going to do favours for their buddies?
What we're going to do, we're going to work with MNL, come up with a fiscal arrangement for all communities across the
Give us some idea how that looks, Eddie, because I think that it's an important issue, and the phrase is kind of getting lost a little bit, this fiscal framework business. I mean, there's no magic bullet here, and there's no template in place that will satisfy all the needs of small, medium, and large communities. I think we've got a devil of a time coming up with a manageable situation, especially given the cost-sharing allocation formula. I don't know how we're going to do this. I mean, like I said to Pender yesterday, we've got to acknowledge the historical contribution from the province, the infrastructure shortcomings, the population base growing or dwindling, the larger centres, their needs. We got to talk about water treatment facilities. All of those things. There's no one size fits all, even based on population. So that's going to be awful tricky to do right.
It's going to be difficult, but here's the point. MNL has put forth a discussion paper on it. We met with MNL on it. We're very much involved with MNL on it and what the priorities are and how we can do it. It's going to take time. It's going to take certain things that you need right away to do it. But my point here with Charles Pender, instead of trying to point the fingers at smaller municipalities.
Eddie, you're breaking up. Are you on a cell phone?
No, I'm not, no.
Okay, sorry, we're back.
Sorry.
Keep going.
And instead of pointing the fingers, why don't he work with MNL so he could work with the government of Newfoundland and Labrador?
I think he is. I think he's working through MNL. I think the MNL is doing a good job trying to present its case. I think they've made some headway. They'd acknowledge that. Charles Rogers says...
MNL has.
Yeah.
MNL has. But what I'm saying to the mayor, let's not have division with the small towns. You have an avenue. You have an avenue here. You're saying if you're going to put out comments in the paper, in the Western Star, that are disparaging, like for example, he said in the paper, it was under the understanding that there would be no more municipal operating grants for anybody when they were cut in the city of Corner Brook. That is absolutely categorically false. Because I could show you comments I made. It was out in the public where I said the city of Cormac, the larger municipalities will be cut. They're going to get a one-time grant, which he stated, and will continue on for the other ones. I said it's not fair because for him to make that statement, he should go back to his council, read the letters that I wrote him, read the comments that I made, and these are statements saying, okay, we didn't know this was happening, but you're getting it. What he should do, stop trying to take the blame of the city of Corner Brook and pass it on to smaller municipalities, because a lot of those smaller municipalities haven't got a $27 million city hall. A lot of the municipalities are down living in working at the same community hall that they did for the last 40 years.
I get it. I understand, but everyone's got a different set of needs, and when it comes to provincial members, I hope that you and your colleagues all remember the provincial good and the big picture need play an active role in decisions. For municipalities, they want what they want when they want it, and I get it, and you make an excellent point, and I accept it in full. Another issue before we move on, the whole bit about these petitions that float around the House of Assembly. I mean, this is not a criticism. You're famous for putting them forward, and in particular around the Corner Brook Hospital. Are we now at a point where... Actually, first question and just a simple answer. Have you ever had a government staffer or a member of your own staff sign a petition on your behalf?
Not on my behalf, but I signed one before. There was an issue with Randy Edmond.
Yeah.
That and the way a petition goes is that you need the original petition. And in order to present it, there was an issue came up in Labrador with Randy Edmonds. His residents want a petition. He had some on its way in. It would take 2 or 3 days to get him in. So he did a petition. He said, can someone sign it? I signed it because I knew the issue. And another issue is that everybody who signed it was from Labrador. And I said, Jeebus, I agree with that. I signed the petition with the full knowledge.
Yeah.
With the full knowledge that that's public. I signed it.
Oh, yeah.
And what happened there with the petition at that time is that Randy, his residents want that issue brought up immediately. By the time the petition got in, he presented the petition on behalf of the resident.
Right.
But he just wanted to explain it. On the hospital, there's over 4,000 different people who signed the petition.
That's all right, and I understand. You know, I've talked about it many times. Yeah. But do you think, Eddie, that we are reached a point now where we've got to seriously consider how these petitions work? I think it really diminishes the value of them when people purposefully hold back the full names to resubmit the petition day after day or week after week, whatever the case may be. Well, and especially with government staff signing. I mean, I really think that belittles and harms the public because it doesn't present a legitimate, clear picture of what's going on.
If you had, for example, at the hospital in Cornmark, I use that for example. If I had staff here just signed it, stand up, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But when I got 4,000 or 5,000 names, and they're coming in regularly, by the way, they're coming in. So as they come in, I present them. If I had just staffers every day, the same 4 or 5, I agree with you. But when I got 5,000 or 6,000 petitions, 4,000 or 5,000, and they want me to present them, if I get 5 pages, I'll present 5. If I get 1, I'll present 1. But you have to the part about that, Patty. There's a standing order on what needs to be done. Every petition has to be passed by the House of Assembly before it's allowed to be presented. So the Speaker's office can say no.
And we can always request it from the Speaker's office, right?
Pardon me?
We can always request a copy of the petitions from the Speaker's office?
At their table. Their table. And so what I'm saying is that every petition that's presented is approved before it's presented. So if there's any problem within the standing orders of the petition, they come back and say no.
Yeah.
Like if it's a photocopy, and in that case that was talking was Randy Evans, Randy could have got 20 or 30 photocopied, faxed in, but you can't present them in the House. It has to be the original petition.
I understand that. Yeah. And that's some of the controls, but I think there's more that need to be put in place so that we can bring back what should be the legitimate impact of a citizen-signed petition, and we've got to put some controls in place so it doesn't become a shell game, so to speak. And I know your point, and you answered my question. I appreciate that, and I always enjoy the chat, Eddie. I got to go to the break.
I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, I said, the thing I like about Colin and the Patty, he challenged you. I love that. I love being challenged, love being asked questions. I love the opportunity to be challenged so you can ask your point of view. So thank you for that again.
I always appreciate that, Eddie. And as everyone knows, it's easier to hit a home run off a fastball.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Eddie. Eddie Joyce, Liberal member of the House of Assembly for the Bay of